から けき人もついには滅びぬひとえに風の前の地に同じ
And how long has this geisha's been happening now? Who is it that gave them their higher status? Because they've got a pretty high status, and they're known in the newspapers. They're known everywhere. That
Well, the thing is that it's mainly through their connections. The geisha were always providing a space where people could be themselves. That even happens in the modern zashikis. People work very hard in Japan, they always did, and have to have a real devotion and dedication to the people that they work for. So hierarchy is important. The geisha make a place where it's a bit like, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens in the tea house stays at the tea house. And so you'd get very high level shoguns, samurai, business people, all sorts, who would actually go to the geisha houses just to relax in the evening, and they could be whoever they wanted to be. And that's one of the reasons why the zashiki that we provide is a traditional type of geisha banquet, and it's the games are daft. there's sake splashed all over the place. It's just because it's nice to play, it's nice to have fun, and you intersperse that with the traditional dances and some lovely food, and we can just all be human together. So the fact that the geisha do provide that environment means that they end up actually, after the zashiki, on an emotional level, being connected to people who are quite high up, because that's where they go to relax.
I was told it was a bit of a fantasy world as well. It's like it's private, and it's kind of a dream world where whatever happens in there is kept in there, and people are normally maybe a bit more lightened. It's more like a party than it's not religious. But it's spiritual, and it's
spiritual play. Yes,
and it's a bit of a party, I assume, because they provide drinks normally. It's quite the normal standard, and it might be sake. I watched a program and they were serving champagne even.
And beer, and brandy, whiskey. There's all kinds of.
The thing is, as well, about it being a fantasy world. Some people go on about, the geisha's job is to, make men feel like, all men feel like an emperor or whatever. But actually, it's just that geisha are there to cater for whoever turns up. And these days, in the past, it would always be just men, because traditionally, actually, the only way you could actually be going to parties as a woman was to become a geisha. That was your only option. Otherwise, you were under your father as the daughter, and then you got married, and then you were under your husband, and you stayed in the home. You didn't really go anywhere. These women, I'm sure they were very happy, because then their men would go off to work, and women, when the men have gone to work, they do what they want with each other. Don't they? They meet for coffee,
they hang out, they chat, they have their own network and socialising.
They
and
hold
everything.
each other's babies when they're really irritated with them.
And the tradition of the Japanese woman being her indoors includes the fact that she rules the house.
She does, yes.
And traditionally, they all pass on from one to another the idea that who would want to get involved in business, that it's not interesting, it's not fun.
No, they wouldn't want to talk to the man about his work.
A house is a real place where real things happen.
Yes.
Food and clothes and cleaning are real life, and they're not stressful and strange and artificial like the world of business. So there's a lot of contentment there, which is one reason why we didn't really meet many Japanese women until the earthquake brought people out to do fundraising events, because the Japanese wives that we know are very content to be in control of a home and not out there in the rat race.
They're very strong women,
They are.
Yeah.
And they know how to create happiness. They have a tradition of meditation that isn't just some imposed practice by somebody coming in and teaching you how to do it. It's embedded in the culture that they know to be calm and happy and positive, and to fit into their lives.
And of course, these days as well, at the Zashiki parties in Japan, there's Japanese people go, Western people go, women go, and actually there are women who are becoming patrons of geisha too. So it's not all we look to the men to look after us. Japan has moved on. Women have become liberated, and then they decide what they want to do with their lives, including the geisha who are training now. In the past, there was a thing where geisha would sometimes be, as children, sold to a geisha house. And then, of course, the geisha house is struggling to make ends meet. The girl had to do a lot of the work, and she had to toe the line, and it wasn't a very easy existence. But she got to eat white rice, and she got to eventually have a dream of being able to, meet interesting people, which ultimately she would have, would do her better in the long run in some ways than starving in the agricultural country, where the shogun and daimyo would be asking for so much rice, you wouldn't have much to eat at all.
The idea of being bought and sold and owned, and how awful that is, it has to be seen against the background of the fact that people were bought and sold and owned in every profession. The peasants were always starving. Nobody cared about them.
No.
This is medieval times, and the world was feudal, and life was harsh for everyone.
Yeah.
And you were lucky if you were sold out of your village because you were spotted as somebody who could join what was basically the middle class of the geishas. You may have been saved from starving to death.
Yeah.
So it's you have to look on these things with the eyes of the time rather than
well,
modern
and
eyes.
of course it's like you say, the eyes of the time, but also of course that was happening in the West as well. Back the Victorians used to send their kids up chimneys. Goodness knows what that did to their lungs.
Well, they died young.
Yes.
There was a reason why I was lucky to touch a chimney sweep, is because he was still alive.
And of course,
well done.
Of course, the people who were dying were the people who didn't have chimneys, so no one really cared about them.
No, but we also sold our girls into servitude, maids in the houses, and they weren't terribly well treated. And the whole idea that we had to take care of our children was something that came on at the end of the Edwardian era, when we started thinking that actually children had a right to a childhood, because before that, a 10-year-old was a worker. They went to the coal mines, they did hard work.
Yeah. One thing that was hard for the geisha was when, because there was a big culture of geisha in Kyoto, the old capital, that surrounded, the powerful people who were visiting the emperor and the emperor himself. People. There was a tradition of sort of sneaking out to the geisha house. Maybe even dressed in a disguise. Nobody knows that you went there. When Kyoto became the new capital, there was a lot of fighting and things, and during the Edo period, which is the Elizabethan times, which is when Totnes itself was getting very rich, weren't we? We got lots of lovely buildings. That's the time when the emperor moved from Kyoto to Tokyo, and so then that was the new capital, because that's where the emperor lived. And of course that left the geisha a little, who were, okay, they had high status, but, they were actually struggling with their culture and need to keep everyone fed, and, even the very lowest of those in training, keep them fed, keep them alive and happy, or at least alive and artistic. And so that's when they started doing regular big performances, which is what Suki-san was talking about earlier.
Yep.
Cherry blossom dances, different times like that. Yeah.
I'm quite fascinated when Stevie mentioned about earthquakes and how they had to come out a bit more. I thought, okay, so they sound like they were kind of esoterical at one stage and they were top secret, and then when disaster happened they had to be up more front to support the people, everybody.
Well, yes.
And should open their door sort of thing more to Japan, to the common people a bit more.
Yes, it seemed to shake up the emigre culture in this area, which was more hidden, and it's that's when we met all the Japanese people.
And of course, around the time of the Fukushima disaster as well, geisha were sent out into the streets with collection boxes too. Kyoto wasn't really affected by the disaster, but they used their power to try and to generate funds for people who had been hit by disaster.
It's a real opportunity for them to be more accepted, and they've become iconic now. So
yeah. So that
I think it's like a problem is an opportunity in disguise. Really,
yes, it is like that. Yeah. It all depends, doesn't it? When something
Yeah.
happens, it all depends on what decision you make, where your path goes, and that's illustrated in a lot of the movies that we see, which reflect Japanese culture. As like, this happened, then what? And we see that in Memoirs of a Geisha. She is sold to a geisha house because her mother dies, and the father just doesn't have the money to look after his two girls, so then he sells them both. And she talks about how the fact that her mother died created, set off a whirlwind of events, and it's how she responded to that, that made her path. Yeah.
The history of geisha is a fantastic illustration of adaptation. Under pressure from changes in the economy, changes in society, and foreign influence. As you study the story through the years and through the centuries, there's this constant adaptation, so as to be able to stay the same at the core, because there's a spiritual core to it which goes right back into prehistory, even before the taikomochi began as the male entertainers of the rich. They go right back into prehistory as the shamanistic tradition, and so that right up until the present day, there's a very special point at the centre of this, which isn't art in the sense of showing off. Or trying to be in showbiz. Ultimately, there's a core to this, which is a connection to the spiritual world, which has to be held by special people who make the time to do that, because not everybody can do it.
No, indeed, it's very
dedicated. And they
dedicated.
offer that to everybody else,
Yes.
and that's really the core of what a geisha is.
Of course, that thing as well about the adaptability, that is one of the things about why people in the West are confused about geisha and think maybe that they're prostitutes, which is because during the wartime, again, when Japan was hit with a lot of poverty, women were copying the idea of the adaptability of the geisha from the past, and they put on any kimono that they had left over from that hadn't been burnt up during the war, and then sold themselves as geisha girls.
It's kind of tainted.
Yeah.
It's tainted the name of its true essence.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Even in Japan,
Yeah.
it's still there's a constant struggle to distinguish between the two. They've always been distinguished as separate professions, although they've blurred sometimes.
Well, like
I mean,
the human
well,
beings. So yeah.
Yeah.
People aren't always strictly one thing or another.
So a couple of opposites there. The shakuhachi and the taiko. Taiko is amazing. It's the way they drum in Japan is a full body experience, and it's a real dance and a coordination of a team, and really something I recommend trying out for people. I look at these drummers who've got experience, and they must be so fit to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Well, did you say there was a regular taiko thing here? On a Tuesday.
Every Tuesday, yep.
What time? Studio 20?
I'm not sure. It goes on till about 9 o'clock. I think they start about 7ish.
Okay, yeah, great. So, and also we're lucky because in Exeter there's the annual International Taiko Festival held in Exeter, so we can go to that, and they do like 3 whole days of taiko, and I went to one of the concerts, and it's just so exhilarating, as you can imagine from just listening to the track there. The other one was a shakuhachi piece played by Adrian Friedman, and he's my shakuhachi teacher. I'm lucky that he's teaching me, and he's telling me about the balance between sound and space. So it's you're relaxed sort of within the out breath and the in breath. It's very meditative, really.
Can you get him online? On internet?
Yeah, if you look him up. But also, locally, on the last Friday of every month, he's giving a recital at the Forge Yoga Centre in Totnes, which, again, I recommend going to because it's such a grounding and peaceful experience listening to the shakuhachi music. We've been lucky to connect to a lot of Japanese art around in local, haven't we?
It's amazing how much there was here. We didn't know about any of it until we started looking in, and there's just so much everywhere.
Yes. It's really great, and we go often to the Mirai Painton in Painton. They have a Japanese club there, and they get together and do all sorts of things. So we went there. We've made big noodles with them, and seen the special dolls at doll festivals, and all sorts of things. And we last Saturday we went to a multicultural event in Painton. That's a good place where they're doing it in Painton, and watched a demonstration of kendo, which was amazing, wasn't it? The commitment and heart that they put into both the structure, but also really yelling and going for it when they went with the sword. It was quite amazing to witness.
It's all about the chi, isn't it? Like being absolutely definitely where you are and absolutely definitely doing what you're doing, not wobbling.
And we try to work that sort of thing into our training, as geishas, understanding their different levels, being where we are.
What first got you inspired into geisha?
Well, it was Suki-san's fault. She gave me that book by Lisa Dalby, and she knows what I'm like. I either would have, she'd come back next week and say, "Where's that book?" and I'd go, "I don't know. Maybe I left it, in the house somewhere." But
what's the name of that book?
It's called Geisha.
Geisha.
By Lisa Dalby. But actually, I grabbed it with both hands because I was really inspired by the sort of structure but it's got so much space in it, what you're creating. And it was echoed by a thing I read about one of geisha called Komomo. She wrote a book too about her life training as a geisha, and she said that her older sister said that really their main job was to be healers, by creating that the zashkis, the space where people could just be, and people could be accepted and loved, because we all want to be loved, and we might think that we can, that people have access to love, but people are very busy, and even people who are married for years sometimes forget to sort of hug each other. You just get so busy with life, and so that just to have a gentle, loving acceptance, which isn't to do with we're going to be the next best buddies or anything, or shacking up together, but just I see you. You see me, that's nice food, isn't it? Just simple human interaction. And I especially like the idea of that with parties as well, because as I was growing up, I'll admit I never really kind of connected much to my peer group, maybe partly because I have had epileptic seizures since I was 8 years old. It used to confuse me that people would say, "Yeah, Saturday was really great, man. I cannot remember half of it." And I'd be like, well, how can the fact that you have no awareness of what actually happened be counted as a good thing? So I love the idea that, in the geisha party there's a little bit of alcohol, but it's drunk socially, and it's drunk in the context of playing a game, and oh dear, having to drink sake for a forfeit when you've lost a game. I just really like the idea that everything is kind of light, so you can come away and just gently remember what went on.
Yeah, it's even I do mostly serving and engaging with people in this light discussion. But after the last Sasuke, we didn't actually get out of there until gone 11, coming on 12. And I felt so energized, I wanted to go dancing.
Yeah, it's really funny.
I was bouncing on the street. We had packed up everything. It was all packed away, put in the taxi, and it was like, okay, good night. Now, where's the nearest club? Come on. I have energy now. Come on.
There's nothing like, the energy that comes off someone when you truly, accept them. You have to be, calm and patient to be able to do it. So that's why the geisha take time to train. But when you've actually got there, the buzz that you get off just communicating directly with people, like you say, is difficult to come off.
It's a
come
great
down
high.
from, yeah.
And we've found that we have I think in our country where our way of communicating is so kind of, it's messy.
It's convoluted.
We don't know what we're doing talking to each other half the time. I think that we have a lot to learn from the Japanese, who have an incredible ability to respect not only other people but themselves. The constant nodding, the little bow, meaning I'll give in to you being who you are. I'm not trying to boss you around. But also, I've noticed a very special thing Japanese people do, where they'll say something which they've thought about it for enough of a moment to be sure that they know what they're talking about, and then they'll say, maybe a couple of times. They're respecting themselves. They're agreeing with what they've just said and staying with it. They don't need to rush off and think something else. There's no, you don't need to have a great novelty in every damn thing you say. It's fine to just make your point and then you just sit there with it, just like, yeah, that's
well, and
true.
also it's like with the Sasuke, we've got into a good rhythm of it now. It was very stressful. It would be really great sometime in the future if we could gain support so that we could have a permanent venue, because most of the stress is getting all the stuff together, setting it all up, taking it down and back again in one night. It's like most, even in theatre, people tend to play something for 2 or 3 days in a space before they take down the set. But now we've kind of got used to a rhythm of it. It's very interesting that we don't have to do much that is different in each Sasuke. We can just do the similar things. We learn a few extra dances. People are gradually growing up, and people are gradually moving on to the next stage. What makes the difference is the people and their moods, and that's always different.
Yeah, we always get a different crowd, a different combination of people, and the mood they're in when they show up, and it really engages the conversation. It really pushes which direction it goes in.
Let's put it out there. What we want is a place with a clean, smooth wooden floor. You have to have a smooth floor. You can't do the dances on the carpet. It needs to have some storage space, a small kitchen, and it'd be really nice if it was wheelchair accessible. So, let's not forget to say that. We would love a place where we can put everything away instead of having to taxi it up and down the town.
With that, you demonstrate what the taikomochi is all about, which is saying the thing that actually most people wouldn't. They might think it, but
they wouldn't say it.
Yeah.
That's right.
落書の期限月の着運命とか宿命に従う気はないぜ唾を吐け気分を向け立ち向かうのさ Is this my way 限りある今も生き急ぐ時代を切なぶった切ってゆけ Is this my way 振りかざす刃この店に溶かしても生き抜け不屈の魂 With SounDartめぐる血を呼ぶ拳のまれな年たなびく見果た風林火山巨大な世界に映ってかい願いペンと缶に冷たい意味言葉出し百なき野望にピリオドはなし孤独とか痛みとか舐め合う気はないぜぶちくだけぶちくだけリアルな寒さ掴み取るのさ It is my head 握りしめて今あなたへ容赦で捨てては手に入れろ It is my soul 見えない明日を描かれたこの世界を希望に変えてく生き様 With SounDart
Wow. Okay. You've come here today, Emily, with you're dressed the full kimono.
Well, not full. It's funny when I
Right.
put these on because I just wear. This is just a normal kimono that a Japanese lady would wear, and it's interesting when people stop me and they go, "Oh, there's a geisha," you know, when I've just put on something, because this only takes me maybe like 20 minutes, if that, to put on. Whereas to be getting the full geisha stuff with the with the makeup and the long kimono and the long obi and the wig, that takes about a couple of hours. So so when people say, "Oh, the full gear," when they look at me like this, I'm like,
Not quite.
And the wigs are quite expensive too. They're not.
Well, I do my own wigs.
Yeah.
I don't particularly enjoy working with hair, so any hairdressers out there who would be interested to come and help me, then that would be good. But yeah, so that helps to save a bit of money because we're doing this all on quite a tight budget.
Yeah, we do all our own hair decorations as well, the kanzashi, and oh gosh, everything.
We try to do, and we try to do everything as much as we can because we're trying to save money. In that, we're not very traditional because actually geisha delegate, don't they?
Absolutely.
More than we do, yeah.
Yeah, we need to find more people who want to get involved.
Yeah, and they get paid enormous amounts too, don't they?
Well, there is that,
Yeah,
yes.
it's true. Yes, yeah.
But you've just made a new pair of shoes?
Yes, I have, yeah. So much filing.
Oh, God,
Wow.
wooden shoes.
we haven't got much time now.
Carpenter, hairdresser.
Yeah.
But
So the last
yeah, we
thing,
have-
the
yeah.
last thing I'd like to ask before we go is your show. Can you please tell me more about your show, because I'm going to come to your show this weekend.
Yeah.
It will be this Saturday,
Yeah.
and it starts at 7:30 and will go on till about 10:30ish. And we'll have lots of lovely food and traditional arts, and we'll have lots of people who are in different stages of training.
yes.
And we'll play games too.
Oh, absolutely.
And
And
it
there'll
will
be dancing.
It'll be at Birdwood House, which
In
is near the
Totnes.
Market Square in
Yeah.
Totnes.
But don't phone Birdwood House for details. Phone us.
Search Totnes Geisha and you'll find our contact details.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're mainly on
Totnes
Facebook.
Geisha.
Because we're not based at Birdwood House, we just hired the venue, so it belongs to someone else. So yes, search for Totnes Geisha.
And you've been invited to as a special guest for at the
Amala Fest.
Amala Fest.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. We've choreographed a new piece, which is made a combination of two very traditional Japanese music pieces, and both me, Hachiko, and also Hachihana, who is going to be going up to Maiko's stage soon. She'll be joining me in that performance.
Maiko is the beginners, basically.
Well, there's different stages. The shikomi is like the first stage. That's when you're starting to live in the house and you're helping out. Our shikomi don't live with us, but when they're around, they help us as much as possible, and people will ask them to do little things. And then there's the Minarai, which they're starting to take their art a bit more seriously. They start wearing outfits that are more like the whole thing, so they get used to the feel of it, and they start really training in their art so that they're ready to debut at a Maiko, which is the stage where they are really adjusting to the life of a geisha, so that when geisha time comes along, they can confidently slide into that.
And they
level.
dance. The Maiko are the dancers. That's when you start to actually perform. That
yeah.
stage.
So you've got a show this Saturday.
Yeah.
And we don't need to bring anything.
No, just bring yourselves and
And,
a little bit of cash, because it's £7 each to cover the cost of that, out of the sake and the drinks and the food and the entertainment and
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good night. I can
Yeah, it's relaxed and fun, and it will be. We won't know quite what it will be until it happens, but
Yes.
that's all the fun of it.
see it. Okay, thank you, people.
And
Thank you.
Tell us about the Amalfest as well. Amalfest.
The Malafest is happening on the 16th of November, I believe, and it's raising money, raising awareness, and money will be going towards medicines to help Syrian people who have been affected by bombs. People are being killed over there. People are suffering. Limbs are being lost. And we need medication. They are lacking medication. We've got a person who is from Syria, and she's going to be taking the medicine. She's working with doctors, and she's going to be taking everything into Syria.
Wonderful.
To help the doctors, to help the people who are suffering, the innocent people. So that's the 16th of November.
We really enjoy the opportunity to be able to help with events like that.
Great.
Yes, we'd like to volunteer to do all kinds of things. And could
波のね